Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. Today, in this episode of the Wise Conservative Show, we're going to be talking about a wide range of different topics. We're going to start out with the recent issues with Russia and their jets, and then we're going to kind of transition into what happened in North Korea just recently, and then we're going to finish it off with some good old campaign trail news. So to start off with this Russian news that I was talking about, so recently, Russian attack jets buzzed close to a U.S. destroyer in the Baltic Sea. John Kerry told CNN that under U.S. rules of engagement, that they could actually shoot down these planes. So that's how close that these jets, these Su-24s, were to actually being next to our U.S. destroyers. Some say that they could actually read the numbers on the side of the plane because they were that close. So John Kerry then in that interview went in to say that he condemned the flyovers, that the U.S. condemned them. So Russia, in response to this, they said that their Su-24 pilots turned around immediately after seeing the ship while using, quote, all measures of precaution. So in the different encounters, what we have heard from our U.S. sailors is that they were dangerously close to the ship and not using all measures of precaution. What we have heard is that they were way too erratical, being next to a U.S. destroyer. So the fact that Russia is really taking this lightly and they're not really saying that it was their fault, that they did something wrong, that's really saying something. So if we actually look at the past, though, this definitely is not the first time that Russia has flown their jets near our country or near our boats. Back in January of this year, actually, a Russian jet came within 15 feet of our F-22s over the Black Sea. Now, that's very close no matter what. 15 feet is extremely close, especially for very fast-flying fighter jets. When the jet turned away from our jets, people say that it actually made the F-22s lose control because it was so erratical when they turned away. As well, on 4th of July last year in 2015, 2 Russian bombers flew dangerously close to the coast of California. Now, on the same day, 2 more Russian bombers flew just off the southern coast of Alaska. In both of these instances, our Air Force intercepted them and the bombers did turn around. But this was on 4th of July. Reports have said that Putin actually called Obama during these flyovers and wished him a happy 4th of July. I mean, this is kind of just disregard to what we stand for, disregard to our country from Putin and the rest of Russia. They continue to fly their jets right next to our military vehicles and next to our actual country. If we look to the past even more, though, this is very similar to what was happening during the Cold War. We see that during the Cold War, both the U.S. and Russia would conduct long-range air patrols. Now, these air patrols were for a variety of reasons, but mostly just to say that we were still there. As tension from the war started to kind of decrease, though, so did the amount of patrols that were happening until they eventually did stop. For many years, these patrols didn't go on from both the U.S. and Russia until 2007. In 2007, President Putin of Russia started their patrols once again. So Putin now is patrolling not only next to U.S. airspace, he's patrolling next to Japan, and he's patrolling next to Europe as well. He is sending these patrols next to basically all of our allies and next to every single country that was involved in the Cold War. So these patrols, there's actually been a spike in them recently in the past couple of years, but just recently in the past couple of months, there's been an even bigger spike. So no one really knows why Putin has started having more and more patrols, but I do, of course, have a theory on this. So in an interview, Putin blamed the controversy surrounding the Panama Papers on the U.S. government. He said that it was all an elaborate plot to destabilize Russia before Russia's election that happens in this September. Now, if you don't know what the Panama Papers are, there are more than 11 million documents that were leaked anonymously to German news agencies that connected many world leaders, past and even ones that are still in office, to corrupt offshore accounts. Now, Putin was not specifically named in any of these papers, but many of his colleagues or associates were definitely named in these papers. Putin and his associates are denying all connectivity to any of this. Meanwhile, other countries, Iceland, his president, has said that it was just for keeping his wife's money all in contact. So there definitely are some world leaders that are saying that this is true, and they are saying that these papers do have actually connections to them. But then Putin is going and denying it right now. But the fact that he is blaming all of this, all of the Panama Paper controversy on the U.S. government, that's just horrible. That's astounding that he would ever blame such a huge issue on our government. Now, right now, I don't believe our government would be going and trying to destabilize Russia before their election. I just don't think that would happen, and quite honestly, it probably isn't happening. But right now, Putin is kind of trying to rush to find an answer. He's trying to basically find some propaganda that he can use within his own country so that he doesn't lose support from this horrible incident, which has kind of tarnished his name. Because we see that in his country, if he says that this was all the U.S., that the U.S. was putting on an elaborate plot to take down Russia, well, then none of his citizens are going to believe it. But if he says that this was true, well, his citizens obviously aren't going to want him elected again. Now, we all know that the elections in Russia are pretty rigged, but still, this is definitely not a U.S. elaborate plot. I think Putin is really just reaching. But to really show that he is serious about threatening the U.S. and blaming the U.S., he is increasing these patrols of not only the U.S. but our allies. He has increased these patrols so much, and in fact it's gotten very dangerous as with this close encounter, but many NATO officers have said that they intercept multiple accounts of these Russian jets just in one day. So these have definitely increased over the years. In Japan, they have over 200 in a month. So Russia is really trying to overstep their bounds here. Russia is becoming more and more of a threat, quite honestly. Now, I know the biggest threat in the world right now is definitely ISIS. But we see right now Russia is kind of taking advantage of the world's focus on ISIS. They're still in Ukraine. They're still in the Crimea Peninsula. They're in everything. They're still where we wanted them to get out, but we can't focus on them because of this huge issue that is ISIS. So they are taking advantage of all of these worldly issues that are going on currently. They are taking advantage of what is going on, this terrorism that is going on, so that they can once again establish the hold that they had in the world. Just about everybody knows that Putin wants to get Russia back to the span that it was during the great times of the USSR. He has even admitted that the USSR was one of the best times for Russia. So he is obviously using whatever means possible he can to try to improve where he has territory, to try and reach more territory, to try and influence a greater range of the world. And these patrols just show that he is willing to use military action to do it. These patrols show that he is willing to try and instate fear into the American people and our allies. But it's not going to work, because we are going to defend all of these areas because they're our allies. Putin really wants us to make a mistake. He really wants us to make another mistake like we did in Libya, which even Barack Obama admitted was a mistake. He wants us to do that with something towards Russia, something in the Baltic area. That way he can go in and save the day and take it over and make it another part of Russia. Essentially make the USSR again. But that's not going to happen because we can tell that this is what he is trying to do. We can tell that Putin is trying to manipulate the way that the world is working, that he's trying to manipulate this controversy surrounding the Panama Papers, trying to blame it on the United States government. I mean, come on, Putin. Can you really believe that the United States government would undermine another world leader like that? No, not in this current time would the U.S. do that. Not in this current time, in this very tense time towards Russia and America, would the U.S. ever do that. So it's quite honestly astounding that Putin continues to defend his pilots that keep buzzing right next to our ships and our planes and our territory when they are obviously in the wrong. They are obviously trying to push America's buttons, and they are obviously trying to make us take action. It is a show that Putin thinks he is better than our current president. It is a show that Putin thinks that he is better than America. And quite honestly, with our current president, he has taken advantage of Obama. He has taken advantage of Obama time after time, crossing the line that Obama has set, not once, not twice, but multiple times. He has done this so many times, and Obama has not done anything, especially in terms of Ukraine. So we can see because President Barack Obama is unwilling to actually defend the lines that he sets, that Putin is overstepping his bounds now. He has too much confidence in these military operations now. And that can't happen. He cannot get to a great strength anymore. Yes, we have sanctions on him, but quite honestly, those sanctions are not working. We need to get him out of Ukraine, which is in an intense war right now because of him. But President Barack Obama continues to sit around, continues to golf, continues to do anything except actually deal with worldly issues. Then actually deal with the problems which confront our country and our allies. This is why this election is so important. We cannot have someone like Hillary Clinton in the office, someone who has stated that they are going to continue, if not increase, the policies that President Barack Obama has put in place. We cannot allow someone like that into the office. We cannot allow someone like Bernie Sanders, who's going to drive our country into debt, into office. A conservative is the only one that is going to defend our country from these blatant attacks from Russia. A conservative is the only one that is going to defend our country from these geopolitical issues which now confront us. They are not going to sit idly by like President Barack Obama does. They're not going to sit by and go golfing or take stupid BuzzFeed videos like Barack Obama does all the time. No, they are going to act because time after time conservatives have proven that we are the ones that actually want to defend our freedoms and our liberties from the threats which now confront us. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back after this quick commercial break.
The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
This is Dakota Wise, co-host of The Wise Conservative Show, here with an exclusive preview
I can guarantee that all of these illegal executive actions that President Obama has tried to take would be ruled legal, and the president would be allowed to legislate instead of executing the law that the Congress and the American people have put up in front of him.
For more content, find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative.
Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday nights, for a conservative outlook on pop culture and American politics. Together we can reinstitute values back into our nation's young people and help create an alternative path away from the mainstream liberal agenda. Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday nights, only on Youth Revolt. How's it going, everyone? Jason Veely here. I want to tell you about YouthRevolt.org, the ultimate media network for young conservatives. Youth Revolt features a lineup of young radio hosts, columnists, and video bloggers. These are some of the most courageous and articulate millennials out there. Give them some support and check out YouthRevolt.org. YouthRevolt.org. Speak without fear.
Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. So we started off this episode with a little bit of what has been going on with Russia and the US. Now we're going to change gears a little bit to North Korea. So North Korea recently tested an intermediate range ballistic missile. Well, the funny thing about this is it actually blew up on the launch pad. Just another fail in this communist regime. They were testing it for Sunday, which, no, that's not like our actual Sunday. It's a holiday, Sun Space Day, which happens on April 15th to commemorate the creation of their communist regime. So, as we are America, we wanted to show some force. So we sent 3 nuclear-capable B-2s to the region. You know, just so that North Korea doesn't get any ideas, as they have shown that they do like to launch missiles around this time, especially on April 15th. Last year during the Super Bowl, they launched a satellite into space to show that they actually could have long-range missiles. They have claimed that they have capabilities of firing nuclear ballistic missiles towards the U.S. So we know that North Korea is trying to be a threat. They're trying to say that they have all these capabilities, but this test just proves that they're lying about so much. I mean, their test, by the way, this is the first time this missile has ever been tested. It blew up on the launch pad. It didn't even get off the launch pad. This communist regime in North Korea has failed time after time to even create anything. These missiles, they've had them for about a decade. They've had these missiles for a long time, and they've never even tested them. That just shows the inefficiency of this communist nation. It shows the inefficiency of North Korea. They are, quite honestly, not going to be much of a threat because they probably don't even have nuclear capabilities. They probably haven't actually tested anything that could do any damage. Because we see just from this that they don't actually test a lot of their stuff. They just hope that it works. Well, Kim Jong-un, quite honestly, is a horrible leader. There's a video of him. He tried to fire a handgun, and he couldn't even fire a handgun right. The man does not know how to do any sort of military operation. He doesn't know how to run a country. So, North Korea, quite honestly, it's just sad that they're still trying to be the big boy on the block. That they're still trying to threaten South Korea and all of the neighboring countries. It's quite honestly sad that they're even still an issue. They probably don't have much of a military. They probably don't have much of anything. Because, well, when their soldiers do rise what they're fighting for, this communist regime, they're not going to keep fighting for him. The only reason why North Korea is still operational is because of the brainwashing that they have continued to have from day one of these people being born. Once this brainwashing is somehow stopped by a different nation, they're weak. They are essentially a destroyed nation. So North Korea, they're not really a threat. They keep trying to fire these missiles. They keep trying to test these long-range missiles, these missiles that could hit the U.S. or our allies. But time after time, their tests fail. This isn't the first time that one of their tests has ended in it blowing up on the launch pad. A few months back, if I am remembering right, one of their other missile tests blew up on the launch pad as well. They just don't have a good development program. So, honestly, they are not the threat that they claim they are. North Korea is not the threat that they're trying to make it seem they are, because quite honestly, they're running out of resources. They don't have anything to develop these new things. They don't have any sort of resources to even feed their citizens. North Korea is suffering, and it's amazing that they're still trying to act like they're in perfect condition. It's amazing that they're still trying to act like they could take on the world's largest military. It's just astounding that Kim Jong-un is that idiotic, that stupid, to even believe that he has the capabilities to go up against the greatest country on earth, to go up against the greatest military on earth. And not just us, but our allies. His military, his missile program, everything in North Korea is a sorry excuse for what it's trying to be. North Korea is not going to be a threat anytime soon because they can't even develop a proper missile. But to get to some more issues that are close to us, onto the campaign trail. You know, what we all love, we've heard so much of it lately, so let's hear a little bit more. Well, recently Paul Ryan has said that he does not want a GOP nomination. You know, this actually came as a surprise to me, because recently, actually on Tuesday's broadcast, as I was filling in for my co-host, I talked actually a great deal about Paul Ryan and him might getting the GOP nomination by the establishment. So I was really surprised to hear that Paul Ryan denied this. I mean, that's just politics, though. You deny anything like that. So, I mean, I still do believe, though, that if the establishment does have the chance to nominate him, that they'll definitely jump at it. I definitely believe that they will continue to nonchalantly push for Paul Ryan behind all the rest of this chaos that is going on in our political race. And I believe that Paul Ryan, if there is a contested convention, is still one of the nominees that is going to come out. I really do believe that he is going to be the nominee if we have a contested convention. I know he has denied it, but quite honestly, that doesn't mean anything. This is a career politician. They lie to us all the time. So what's one more lie about whether he wants to be the nominee or not? Now, I'm not even sure if he said that he wouldn't accept it. I'm pretty sure he didn't say anything about whether he would accept it or not. So that's kind of a sly trick if he didn't, so that he never said he wouldn't accept it, so he'll still accept it, and then he can run as the GOP nominee. Now, I know I've talked about the whole contested convention situation an awful lot on our program, because it's really just a horrible situation that we might be facing. So I'm going to kind of move on from that right now, because I don't want to bore you guys with the same thing over and over again. So actually, just today, George Pataki has endorsed John Kasich. Now, quite honestly, I'm a little surprised that I'm still having to talk about Kasich this late into the presidential race. And I don't think this endorsement will have any effect on the upcoming elections. Now, New York is definitely coming up for the primaries, and Pataki is a former New York governor. But I don't think he has nearly enough support to sway any voters, definitely not enough to sway Kasich into first place. Because right now, Trump is definitely going to take New York. He is polling way ahead of everyone. he is up over 50. I believe I saw 53%, and Kasich is down at 21%. So Kasich stands no chance in New York. Ted Cruz is way down. I believe he's at 14% or something like that. He is very low in New York. New York is obviously going to go to Donald Trump. I mean, he's a New Yorker. He's from there. They're obviously going to vote for him. So this endorsement is really just kind of like a last-ditch effort from John Kasich, from his campaign to try and get some voters. But it's not going to work at all. George Pataki, I believe he ran at the beginning of this presidential election. I mean, he was such a small candidate that I can't even remember if he was one of them or not. I think he was one of them that was on the lower debate stages from the very beginning and one of the first to drop out. So, I mean, he obviously doesn't have much support. He obviously doesn't have many followers. So this isn't going to affect anything, and it's really just John Kasich trying to stay relevant. But on to another issue about this presidential election. The DNC right now is suing the state of Arizona over primary problems. They are saying that the actions of high officials in Arizona caused long waits on the state's primary day. Now, that doesn't sound too bad. There were long waits, and they're blaming Arizona for it. But this is where it gets very bad. They are saying that this was discriminatory towards minorities. They are saying that this was the Republicans' fault. Now, Debbie Wasserman, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name right, but she's a U.S. representative and, of course, a Democrat. She recently said that, quote, Republicans are using every major tool, every legal loophole, and every fear tactic they can think of to take aim at the voting rights wherever they can. Now, I read this on a CNN story, actually, and it just blew my mind that the Democrats think that we're trying to take away voting rights. I haven't seen one issue of where Republicans are trying to take away voting rights. I haven't seen one time when we're using legal loopholes to try and get people to not vote, or even a major tool, whatever she's talking about there. The Republicans are not doing this whatsoever. The DNC and the Democrats are trying to blame an issue on the Republicans to try and make us look bad, when quite honestly it is not our fault. The Republicans have not done anything here to try and make the Democrats suffer. It's just another time when Democrats are trying to blame Republicans for something that we have nothing in. There's no part Republican in this issue. And then saying that we are trying to take away the voting rights wherever we can? That's just astounding that anyone would even say that. The Republicans are the ones who are trying to fight to keep our rights. Meanwhile, the Democrats are the ones who are trying to take away our Second Amendment right, our First Amendment right. They are the ones trying to take away our rights. It is not the Republicans, the conservatives, that are trying to take away these essential rights. So to even assert that, to claim it, it's idiotic to even say that the Republicans are trying to take away more rights than the Democrats are, that we're trying to use fear tactics to keep people away from voting booths. The last time I saw fear tactics being used to keep people away from voting was the Democrats in the South when they were trying to keep black people from voting. The Democrats were the ones who were the party of the KKK. They were the party that tried to keep minorities from voting in the past. So the fact that they are sitting there and trying to say that Republicans are doing this, it's just sad that they are reaching now. That they are reaching to try and make us look bad when they're the ones who are trying to take away Americans' rights, when they are the ones who in the past have discriminated against minorities and who have discriminated against people's voting rights. They are the ones that have continually, over time, over the history of our nation, fought to limit our rights and increase the government, instead of how our founding fathers wanted it, with the people having more rights and the government being limited. So it's the Republicans that are trying to save us in this instance. It's Republicans that are trying to keep our rights. Not the Democrats like they're trying to claim here. That's all I really have time to talk for here on this episode of The Wise Conservative. I'd like to thank you for tuning in once again. My name is Connor Wise, and this has been The Wise Conservative Show.